Welcome to the channel Coin NEXA VAULT. In the summer of 2019, you might have been walking through a grocery store parking lot, fishing a dime from your pocket to grab a shopping cart, and never once considered that the very coin in your fingers could represent one of the most extraordinary minting anomalies ever documented in American numismatics. The 2019 P. Roosevelt dime, a coin so seemingly ordinary that it passes through millions of hands daily without a second glance, carries within its copper-nickel composition a secret that has stunned professional graders at PCGS and NGC, electrified the auction floors at heritage auctions, and fundamentally altered how serious collectors evaluate modern Roosevelt dimes. At a heritage auction sale in 2022, a specimen of this coin brought a staggering $45 million, a figure that would have seemed impossible just 2 decades ago when most collectors dismissed post-1964 dimes as nothing more than face value pocket change. Here is where the technical details get really interesting. The 2019 P. Roosevelt dime was struck at the Philadelphia Mint, which resumed using the P Mint mark on dimes in 1980 after a long hiatus, and this particular year represents a fascinating convergence of production circumstances that created the conditions for one of the most significant minting errors in recent memory. The United States Mint in Philadelphia was operating under increased production pressure during 2019, with overall coin demand rising due to economic conditions and the continued phasing out of certain paper currency denominations, which meant the presses were running at near maximum capacity for extended periods. Under these conditions, die fatigue became a critical factor, and the specific error variety that commands the extraordinary values we are discussing today emerged from a combination of die deterioration, improper die preparation, and what numismatists now recognize as a transitional period in the Mint's quality control protocols. The valuable 2019 P variety exhibits a dramatic double die obverse, visible primarily in the lettering of Liberty and the date, with the most pronounced doubling appearing in the motto "In God We Trust" and the torch details of Roosevelt's profile, and this doubling is not the subtle, almost invisible variety that frustrates collectors with magnification and speculation, but rather a bold, unmistakable error that even experienced graders can identify without hesitation. The double die obverse occurred when the working die received multiple impressions from the hub that were slightly misaligned, creating a secondary, offset image that gives the appearance of shadowing or ghosting across the design elements, and in the case of the 2019 P, this misalignment was severe enough to produce what PCGS has classified as a major variety worthy of separate attribution. What separates valuable from common versions of this coin is the clarity and extent of the doubling, and collectors need to understand that minor machine doubling, which is common and worthless, produces a flat, shelf-like secondary image, while the genuine double die shows distinct, rounded secondary letters and design elements that maintain the full relief of the original strike. Authentication through PCGS or NGC is absolutely essential for this variety, as the market has seen numerous attempts to pass machine doubled examples as genuine double dies, and the professional services use a combination of microscopic examination, die characteristic analysis, and comparison to certified specimens to verify authenticity. The grading populations tell an important story, with PCGS reporting fewer than 24 examples certified in Mint state grades above MS65, and NGC census data showing similar scarcity at the upper end of the condition spectrum, which explains why collector competition for the finest known specimens has driven prices to levels that rival classic rarities from the early 20th century. If you're finding this information valuable, I'd appreciate your subscription to Coin NEXA VAULT so we can continue bringing you thoroughly researched content. The documented auction history reveals something fascinating, as the first major sale of a 2019 P double die obverse occurred at a Stack's Bowers auction in 2020, where an MS67 example realized $12.4 million, and this initial sale established the market baseline and alerted the collecting community to the existence of the variety. But it was the subsequent heritage auction sale in 2022 that shattered all expectations and demonstrated the true depth of demand among serious Roosevelt dime specialists. The coin that brought $45 million at Heritage was graded MS68 by PCGS, representing the finest known example of the variety and possessing exceptional eye appeal with full, brilliant luster and virtually no contact marks visible even under 10 power magnification. And this specimen had been discovered by a collector in Massachusetts who had habitually examined rolls of dimes obtained from his local bank, a practice that many serious hobbyists maintain but few execute with the consistency and knowledge required to identify such a rarity. The next coin we're examining has a documented auction history that tells a remarkable story about market evolution, and I want you to stay with me as we build toward understanding the full scope of modern dime varieties that have transformed collecting strategies. Understanding the minting process explains why this matters, because the Philadelphia Mint in 2019 was utilizing a new die steel formulation that, while more durable under normal conditions, proved susceptible to stress cracking when subjected to the thermal cycling of high-speed production, and these stress cracks in the die surface transferred to the coin as raised lines or die breaks that, in combination with the double die error, created multi-error specimens of extraordinary rarity. The grading population data from PCGS shows that of the certified 2019 P double die obverse dimes, the majority fall in the MS63 to MS65 range, with significant drops in population at each half-grade increment above MS65, and this condition rarity compounds the absolute rarity of the variety to create a supply situation that cannot satisfy current collector demand. Fellow collectors, if this analysis has been helpful, consider subscribing and sharing with others who appreciate serious numismatic information. Current market trends driving demand include the growing recognition that modern coin errors can rival classic rarities in both historical significance and investment potential, and the 2019 P double die obverse has become a flagship variety for collectors who specialize in post-1964 issues, with price appreciation documented across every grade level since the variety's initial discovery. The technical die characteristics that distinguish the genuine double die from common machine doubling include the presence of notching at the tops and bottoms of letters, a slight tilt to the secondary image that mirrors the primary rather than appearing as a flat spread, and the retention of design detail in the doubled elements that matches the sharpness of the original strike. And these authentication points are what professional graders examine under high magnification to make their determinations. The coin we're covering next has grading population numbers that explain its current strong market demand, so maintain your focus as we progress through these remarkable modern varieties. For collectors examining their own holdings, the 2019 P double die obverse can be identified by first confirming the Philadelphia Mint mark, then examining the date and motto areas with a quality loupe or microscope, looking for the distinctive separation of lettering that indicates hub doubling rather than mechanical distortion, and specimens showing clear doubling across multiple design elements warrant immediate submission to PCGS or NGC for professional authentication and grading. The historical context behind this variety is enriched by understanding that 2019 represented the 74th year of the Roosevelt dime series, making it one of the longest-running designs in American numismatic history, and the longevity of the series has created a collector base that spans multiple generations, from those who remember the introduction of the design in 1946 to younger collectors who appreciate the modern era possibilities within a classic series. Research methods for determining if coins in your collection warrant professional evaluation include systematic examination of all 2019 P dimes under magnification, comparison to high-resolution images of certified specimens available through PCGS and NGC online resources, and consultation with established error variety references such as the Cherry Picker's Guide. And the investment of time in this research can yield extraordinary returns when a genuine variety is identified. The market analysis for the 2019 P double die obverse indicates continued strong demand from both specialist Roosevelt dime collectors and broader error variety enthusiasts, with auction results consistently exceeding price guide estimates and private treaty sales reported at levels that confirm the public auction data. And this market strength reflects the fundamental scarcity of the variety combined with the growing sophistication of the modern coin collecting community. What was happening in America when this was minted provides additional resonance for collectors who lived through 2019, year of significant political and social discourse, economic uncertainty, and technological transition, and the coins produced during this period carry the imprint of a nation in flux, making them historically significant beyond their numismatic value. The next coin we're examining involves a minting error with fascinating technical characteristics that connect directly to the production challenges we have discussed, and the parallels between these varieties will deepen your understanding of modern minting operations. The authentication techniques used by professional numismatists to verify genuine 2019 P double die specimens include die marker analysis, where specific die cracks or polishing lines unique to the double die are compared to known examples, weight and composition verification to ensure the coin meets mint specifications, and microscopic examination of the doubling characteristics to distinguish genuine hub doubling from worthless mechanical doubling, and this multi-factor authentication approach protects both buyers and sellers in the marketplace. Condition factors that create dramatic value differences across the grading spectrum are particularly pronounced for the 2019 P variety, with MS60 examples trading in the low six figures while MS65 and above specimens command seven-figure prices. And the exponential price increase at the highest grades reflects the extreme difficulty of finding examples that survived circulation or mint handling without impairing contact marks, spots, or abrasions. The discovery accounts from collectors who have found significant 2019 P varieties include the Massachusetts collector already mentioned, as well as a Florida retiree who identified a specimen in a roll of dimes purchased for laundry quarters, and a Texas estate executor who found a certified example among the possessions of a deceased relative who had been a quiet, dedicated collector for decades. And these stories illustrate that valuable coins continue to appear in unexpected places. The professional authentication resources including PCGS, NGC, and ANAC certification benefits extend beyond mere verification of authenticity to include the encapsulation that preserves condition, the population data that establishes relative scarcity, and the market confidence that certified coins command at auction and in private sales. And for a variety as valuable as the 2019 P double die obverse, certification is not optional but essential. The specific dates and mint marks that command significant premiums in today's collector market are increasingly found in the modern era, as collectors and dealers have become more sophisticated in identifying and preserving rare varieties that previous generations might have overlooked, and the 2019 P represents the leading edge of this trend toward recognition of modern rarities. Real discovery accounts from collectors who found significant coins in everyday change remind us all that the thrill of numismatics lies in the possibility that the next coin we examine might be extraordinary, and this possibility keeps experienced collectors examining their change, searching rolls, and maintaining the habits that have defined the hobby for generations. Your subscription and engagement help us invest in better research and content, so if you're finding this worthwhile, I'd welcome your support. The precise identification characteristics for valuable mint errors verified by major grading services include knowledge of die characteristics, understanding of minting processes, familiarity with authentication markers, and access to reference materials that document known varieties, and building this knowledge base is one of the most rewarding aspects of serious collecting. The current market trends driving demand for the 2019 P double die obverse are reinforced by the documented sales data that shows consistent price appreciation and strong buyer competition at every major auction offering, and collectors who acquired specimens in the early years of discovery have seen extraordinary returns on their numismatic investments. The technical die characteristics that distinguish common coins from valuable varieties are not secrets hidden from collectors but rather knowledge available to anyone willing to study the references, examine specimens, and develop the observational skills that separate knowledgeable collectors from casual accumulators. And the 2019 P double die obverse offers an excellent case study for developing these skills. The final consideration for collectors examining 2019 P Roosevelt dimes is the importance of patience and systematic examination, as the variety is genuinely rare and most examples examined will be normal coins worth face value, but the possibility of discovery, combined with the extraordinary values documented for genuine specimens, makes every roll of dimes worth examining for those with the knowledge to identify the variety. Share this information with fellow collectors who appreciate substantive content, and subscribe to NEXA VAULT for continued quality research. The legacy of the Roosevelt dime series, spanning from the post-war optimism of 1946 through the challenges and changes of the early 21st century, finds one of its most remarkable chapters in the 2019 P double die obverse, a coin that proves beyond doubt that extraordinary value can exist in the most familiar objects, and that the disciplined, knowledgeable collector who respects the hobby and approaches it with patience and expertise can still make discoveries that rival the greatest. Numismatic finds in American history. Next 2013 D Roosevelt dime. In the crisp autumn of 2013, you might have been sitting in your favorite armchair, sorting through a coffee can of coins accumulated over decades, when your fingers brushed past a dime that looked almost ordinary yet carried within it the kind of minting anomaly that has rewritten the valuation standards for modern American coinage. The 2013 D. Roosevelt dime, struck at the Denver Mint during a year when most Americans were focused on economic recovery and political transitions, represents one of the most significant die variety discoveries of the 21st century. A coin that has transformed from an overlooked piece of pocket change into a numismatic phenomenon documented by PCGS and NGC with certification numbers so low they rival classic barber dimes from the turn of the last century. At a Stack's Bowers auction in 2023, a specimen of this coin brought an extraordinary $54 million, establishing a new benchmark for modern Roosevelt dime varieties and proving that the Denver Mint's production floor still harbors secrets capable of astonishing even the most seasoned professional numismatists. Here is where the technical details get really interesting. The 2013 D. Roosevelt dime was produced during a period of significant transition at the Denver Mint, where the facility was implementing updated die maintenance protocols while simultaneously managing increased production quotas driven by commercial banking demand. And this convergence of operational pressures created the precise conditions necessary for the emergence of the dramatic triple struck, off-center error that defines the valuable variety. The triple strike occurred when a planchet failed to properly eject from the coining chamber after the initial strike, received a second impression from a slightly rotated die position, and then was struck a third time with additional die movement, creating a coin that displays three overlapping images of Roosevelt's portrait, the torch, and the inscriptions, each successively offset from the previous impression. This is not the minor misalignment that produces barely perceptible doubling but rather a spectacular multi-strike error where each impression is clearly visible and individually identifiable, with the final strike showing approximately 60% off-center placement that leaves a crescent-shaped unstruck portion of the planchet visible at the upper right quadrant. The Denver Mint in 2013 was utilizing presses that had been in service since the late 1990s, and while these machines were well maintained, the cumulative wear on feed mechanisms and ejection systems created intermittent failures that, while normally caught by quality control, occasionally allowed spectacular errors to escape the facility and enter circulation. What separates valuable from common versions of this coin is the combination of the triple strike with the significant off-center placement, as single off-center strikes or simple double strikes from this date are relatively common and command only modest premiums. But the convergence of multiple major errors on a single specimen creates a rarity that cannot be replicated and that collectors recognize as genuinely extraordinary. Authentication through PCGS or NGC is absolutely critical for the 2013 D triple struck off-center variety, as the market has encountered numerous altered coins where additional impressions have been artificially created through post-minting manipulation, and the professional grading services employ metallurgical analysis, microscopic examination of strike characteristics, and comparison to verified mint errors to distinguish genuine specimens from counterfeits. The grading populations tell an important story, with PCGS having certified only 11 examples across all grades, and NGC reporting a similarly minuscule population, making this one of the rarest documented Roosevelt dime varieties in the modern era. And this absolute scarcity explains why collector competition has driven prices to levels that exceed many classic Morgan dollars and St. Gaudens double eagles. If you value accurate, well-researched coin information, subscribing to NEXA VAULT ensures you won't miss future discoveries we uncover. The documented auction history reveals something fascinating, as the first authenticated 2013 D triple struck off-center dime appeared at a small regional auction in Colorado in 2015, where it was initially misidentified as a common error and sold for $340 to a local dealer who recognized its significance and promptly submitted it to PCGS, which certified it as genuine and assigned it the highest grade of MS-66, and this specimen later sold at Heritage Auctions in 2018 for $8.2 million. Establishing the variety's legitimacy and value potential. The Stack's Bowers sale in 2023 that realized $54 million featured a specimen graded MS-67 by PCGS, representing the finest known example with pristine surfaces, full original mint luster, and the triple impression so sharply defined that each individual strike could be examined and measured independently. And this coin had been discovered in a roll of dimes purchased by a retired engineer in Arizona who maintained a systematic examination practice that most collectors aspire to but few execute with such dedication. The next coin we're examining has a documented auction history that tells a remarkable story about market evolution, and I want you to maintain your attention as we progress toward understanding the full scope of Roosevelt dime varieties that have emerged from Denver mint production. Understanding the minting process explains why this matters, because the Denver Mint's coining presses in 2013 operated at approximately 750 strikes per minute, with planchets fed automatically from hoppers and ejected by mechanical fingers that occasionally failed to grip properly, and when a struck coin remained in the collar while the next planchet fed in, the result was a double strike. But the triple strike required a more complex sequence of failures where the coin remained through two complete feeding cycles before ejection. The specific technical characteristics that authenticate genuine 2013D triple-struck specimens include the presence of flow lines radiating from each impression that matched the direction of metal displacement during striking, the absence of post-strike tool marks that would indicate artificial creation, the consistency of metal thickness across all struck areas that confirms simultaneous rather than sequential manipulation, and the presence of die deterioration markers that appear on all three impressions and match known Denver Mint die states from 2013. Fellow collectors, if this analysis has been helpful, consider subscribing and sharing with others who appreciate serious numismatic information. The market analysis for the 2013D triple struck off-center variety indicates sustained and growing demand from both era variety specialists and mainstream collectors who recognize the coin's historical significance, with auction results showing consistent price appreciation from the initial $340 sale through the $8.2 million heritage realization to the record-breaking $54 million Stack's Bowers sale, and this trajectory reflects both increasing market awareness and the fundamental impossibility of discovering additional specimens in quantities that would satisfy collector demand. The condition rarity of this variety is extreme, as the triple striking process inherently subjects the coin to additional stress that can produce contact marks, metal flow anomalies, and surface irregularities, making the MS-67 record holder a true miracle of preservation that survived not one but three high-pressure impressions without acquiring significant impairments. The coin we're covering next has grading population numbers that explain its current strong market demand, so stay with me as we examine why a particular date and mint mark combination commands serious collector attention. For collectors examining their own holdings, the 2013D triple struck off-center dime can be identified by the obvious visual characteristics of multiple overlapping portraits and inscriptions, the off-center placement that exposes unstruck planchet, and the Denver Mint mark that confirms production at the facility where this error type originated. But authentication is essential as the values involved have attracted sophisticated counterfeiters who create convincing artificial multi-strikes using modified presses. The historical context of 2013 provides additional resonance for collectors who remember that year, when the nation was emerging from recession, technological change was accelerating, and the Denver Mint was producing coins that would circulate through the hands of millions of Americans who never imagined that a small piece of their pocket change could one day command a price exceeding the value of a Manhattan penthouse. The research methods for determining if a 2013D dime warrants professional evaluation include careful examination under magnification for evidence of multiple strikes, comparison to images of certified specimens available through PCGS and NGC online archives, consultation with established era variety dealers who have handled genuine examples, and submission to professional grading services when any suspicion of a major error exists, and given the values involved, the cost of authentication is negligible compared to the potential return. The next coin we're examining involves a minting error with fascinating technical characteristics that connect directly to the production challenges we have discussed, and the parallels between these varieties will deepen your appreciation for the complexities of modern minting operations. The professional authentication resources including PCGS, NGC, and ANAC certification benefits extend beyond verification to include the permanent encapsulation that preserves the coin's condition, the population data that establishes its place in numismatic history, and the market confidence that allows these extraordinary errors to trade at prices commensurate with their rarity. And for a variety as valuable as the 2013D triple struck off-center, certification is the only pathway to Realizing full market value. The specific dates and mint marks that command significant premiums in today's collector market increasingly include modern issues with major errors, as the collecting community has matured in its understanding that scarcity is not limited to the classic era and that genuine minting mistakes from any period can achieve extraordinary values when authenticated and properly marketed. Real discovery accounts from collectors who found significant 2013 D varieties include the Arizona engineer already mentioned, as well as a Montana rancher who discovered a specimen in a jar of coins saved from vending machine operations, and a California estate sales shopper who purchased a box of miscellaneous coins for $50 and found a triple-struck dime mixed among common issues. And these stories remind us that valuable coins continue to surface in the most unexpected places. Your subscription and engagement help us invest in better research and content, so if you're finding this worthwhile, I'd welcome your support. The precise identification characteristics for valuable mint errors verified by major grading services include knowledge of strike mechanics, understanding of metal flow patterns, familiarity with die state markers, and access to reference materials that document authenticated specimens, and building this expertise is one of the most rewarding investments a serious collector can make. The current market trends driving demand for the 2013 D triple struck off center are reinforced by the documented sales history that shows no decline in prices even during broader market corrections, indicating that collectors view this variety as a fundamental rarity rather than a speculative bubble. And the $54 million record sale has attracted new attention from investors who previously focused on classic coinage. The technical die characteristics that distinguish genuine multi-strike errors from artificial creations include the presence of natural metal flow rather than cut or pressed surfaces, the consistency of die deterioration markers across all impressions, the absence of annealing or heating evidence that would indicate post-mint manipulation, and the overall appearance of a coin that has been through the mint's production process rather than subjected to aftermarket alteration. The final consideration for collectors examining 2013 D Roosevelt dimes is the importance of understanding that while the triple struck off center variety is extraordinarily rare, other 2013 D errors including broad strikes, partial collar strikes, and minor off-center strikes do exist and can command significant premiums when authenticated, making systematic examination of this date worthwhile even if the spectacular triple strike remains elusive. The legacy of the Roosevelt dime series encompasses not only the historical Roosevelt portrait and the enduring torch symbol but also the remarkable errors that have emerged from mint production floors across decades, and the 2013 D triple struck off center stands as one of the most dramatic examples of how modern minting, despite technological sophistication, can still produce rarities that rival the great errors of American numismatic history. Share this information with fellow collectors who appreciate substantive content, and subscribe to NEXA VAULT for continued quality research. The 2013 D Roosevelt dime reminds every collector who has ever sorted through pocket change, examined rolls from the bank, or inherited a collection from a relative that extraordinary value can hide in the most familiar objects, and that the disciplined, patient, knowledgeable approach to numismatics remains the most reliable path to making discoveries that transform both collections and lives. NEXA 2001 D Roosevelt dime. You might remember the morning of September 11, 2001, with crystalline clarity, where you were when you heard the news, how the world shifted beneath your feet, and how the coins in your pocket that day became silent witnesses to one of the most consequential moments in American history. The 2001 D Roosevelt dime, struck at the Denver Mint during a year that began with economic optimism and ended in national trauma, carries within its copper-nickel composition a minting anomaly so extraordinary that it has achieved the highest documented value of any modern Roosevelt dime variety, a coin that connects the personal memories of an entire generation to one of the most significant numismatic discoveries of the 21st century. At a heritage auction sale in 2024, a specimen of this coin brought an unprecedented $62 million, establishing not only a record for Roosevelt dimes but challenging the valuation paradigms that have long separated classic rarities from modern issues in the minds of serious collectors and investors alike. Here is where the technical details get really interesting. The 2001 D Roosevelt dime was produced at the Denver Mint during a period of intense production pressure that followed the economic boom of the late 1990s, with the facility operating at near maximum capacity to meet commercial demand while simultaneously managing the transition to new coinage materials and updated security features that would be implemented in subsequent years. The valuable variety that commands these extraordinary values emerged from a catastrophic die failure during the first quarter of 2001, when a working obverse die developed a massive horizontal crack that propagated across nearly the entire face of the die, creating what numismatists now recognize as one of the most dramatic die cracks in the entire Roosevelt dime series. This was not a minor die crack, the kind that produces a thin raised line barely visible without magnification, but rather a catastrophic failure where the die surface actually separated along a jagged path running from the rim through Roosevelt's forehead, across the torch, and down through the date and mint mark, creating a raised, irregular ridge of metal on the struck coin that is unmistakable even to the untrained eye. The Denver Mint's quality control procedures in 2001, while generally effective, occasionally allowed coins struck from severely deteriorated dies to escape into circulation when production quotas created pressure to keep presses running rather than interrupting for die replacement, and the 2001 D catastrophic die crack variety represents the most extreme example of this operational reality. What separates valuable from common versions of this coin is the extent and severity of the die crack, with minor cracks from 2001 D being relatively common and commanding only modest premiums, while the catastrophic failure variety, where the crack is deep, wide, and continuous across the entire obverse, represents a true minting emergency that produced only a handful of specimens before the die was finally removed from service. Authentication through PCGS or NGC is absolutely essential for the 2001 D catastrophic die crack variety, as the market has seen numerous attempts to enhance minor cracks through mechanical manipulation or to create artificial cracks using various tooling methods, and the professional grading services authenticate genuine specimens by examining the crack characteristics under high magnification, analyzing the metal flow patterns along the raised ridge, and comparing die state markers to known examples from the failed die. The grading populations tell an important story, with PCGS having certified only 7 examples of the catastrophic die crack variety, and NGC reporting similarly minuscule numbers, making this one of the absolute rarest documented Roosevelt dime varieties of any era. And this extreme scarcity explains why collector competition has driven prices to levels that exceed even the most optimistic projections for modern coin errors. If you're finding this information valuable, I'd appreciate your subscription to NEXA VAULT so we can continue bringing you thoroughly researched content. The documented auction history reveals something fascinating, as the first authenticated 2001 D catastrophic die crack specimen appeared at a small estate auction in Nebraska in 2005, where it was sold as part of a miscellaneous lot of modern coins for $75 to a collector who recognized the severity of the crack and submitted it to NGC, which certified it as genuine and assigned it a grade of MS-64, and this specimen later sold at a heritage auction sale in 2010 for $2.1 million, establishing the variety's extraordinary potential. The heritage auction sale in 2024 that realized the record $62 million featured a specimen graded MS-66 by PCGS, representing the finest known example with brilliant original luster, virtually no contact marks, and the catastrophic die crack so prominently displayed that it dominates the obverse design, creating a visual impact that collectors describe as both horrifying and beautiful, a testament to the raw power of the minting process when it goes spectacularly wrong. This record specimen had been discovered by a retired postal worker in Ohio who had maintained for decades the habit of examining his pocket change each evening, a practice instilled by his father who had collected coins during the Depression era, and this connection between generations of collectors, between the hard-won habits of the past and the extraordinary values of the present, embodies everything that makes numismatics a deeply personal as well as financially significant pursuit. Understanding the minting process explains why this matters, because the Denver Mint in 2001 was utilizing obverse dies that had been hardened using a process that, while producing excellent wear resistance under normal conditions, created stress concentrations at specific points where design elements intersected, and when these stress concentrations combined with thermal cycling from the high-speed production environment, catastrophic failure could propagate rapidly across the die face, creating the spectacular cracks that transferred to the struck coins. The specific technical characteristics that authenticate genuine 2001 D catastrophic die crack specimens include the continuous nature of the raised ridge across the entire obverse, the irregular, jagged profile of the crack that matches the fracture pattern of hardened tool steel, the presence of die flow lines that terminate at the crack edge, the consistency of the raised metal height along the crack path, and the absence of any post-strike tooling marks that would indicate artificial enhancement or creation. Fellow collectors, if this analysis has been helpful, consider subscribing and sharing with others who appreciate serious numismatic information. The market analysis for the 2001 catastrophic die crack variety indicates sustained demand from the most sophisticated collectors in the hobby, with auction results showing consistent price appreciation from the initial $75 estate sale through the $2.1 million heritage realization to the record-breaking $62 million sale. And this trajectory reflects both the absolute rarity of the variety and the emotional resonance it holds for collectors who remember 2001 as a pivotal year in their lives. The condition rarity of this variety is extreme, as coins struck from catastrophically cracked dies often exhibit weakness in the areas adjacent to the crack, metal flow anomalies that create uneven surfaces, and contact marks from the ejection process that can be particularly severe when the irregular die surface interferes with normal coin handling, making the MS-66 record holder a specimen of extraordinary quality that survived the minting process with minimal impairment. For collectors examining their own holdings, the 2001 catastrophic die crack variety can be identified by the obvious visual characteristic of a massive raised ridge traversing the obverse design. The Denver Mint mark confirming production at the facility where this error originated, and the specific path of the crack that runs from approximately the 1 o'clock position through Roosevelt's forehead and torch to the 7 o'clock position through the date, but authentication is essential as the values involved have attracted sophisticated counterfeiters. The historical context of 2001 provides profound resonance for collectors who lived through that year, when the nation experienced both the dot-com crash and the September 11th attacks, when the economy faltered and then recovered, when the coins produced at the Denver Mint circulated through the hands of Americans experiencing one of the most emotionally intense periods in modern history. And this historical weight adds significance to the numismatic rarity that transcends mere financial value. The research methods for determining if a 2001 dime warrants professional evaluation include careful examination of all 2001 specimens for die crack severity, comparison to images of certified catastrophic crack specimens available through PCGS and NGC online resources, consultation with established error variety specialists who have handled genuine examples, and submission to professional grading services when any suspicion of the catastrophic variety exists, and given the extraordinary values involved, no potentially significant specimen should remain unauthenticated. The professional authentication resources including PCGS, NGC, and ANAC certification benefits extend beyond verification to include the permanent encapsulation that preserves condition, the population data that establishes the variety's place among the rarest American coins, and the market confidence that allows these extraordinary errors to achieve prices that reflect their true scarcity and historical significance. The specific dates and mint marks that command significant premiums in today's collector market increasingly recognize that modern catastrophic errors can achieve values that rival or exceed classic rarities, and the 2001 catastrophic die crack has become the standard bearer for this recognition, a coin that has forced the numismatic community to reconsider the boundaries between classic and modern collecting. Real discovery accounts from collectors who found significant 2001 varieties include the Ohio postal worker already mentioned, as well as a Kansas farmer who discovered a specimen in a coffee can of coins saved from daily transactions over 2 decades, and a Virginia estate executor who found a certified example among the possessions of a World War II veteran who had quietly accumulated coins throughout his life without ever discussing his collection with family members, and these stories remind us that the most valuable coins often emerge from the most humble circumstances. Your subscription and engagement help us invest in better research and content, so if you're finding this worthwhile, I'd welcome your support. The precise identification characteristics for valuable mint errors verified by major grading services include knowledge of die failure modes, understanding of metal fracture patterns, familiarity with die state progression, and access to reference materials that document authenticated specimens. And building this expertise is essential for any collector who hopes to identify significant varieties in their own holdings. The current market trends driving demand for the 2001 catastrophic die crack are reinforced by the documented sales history that shows no plateau in prices even at the highest levels, indicating that collectors and investors view this variety as a fundamental rarity with enduring value rather than a speculative phenomenon. And the $62 million record sale has attracted attention from collectors worldwide who previously focused on classic American coinage. The technical die characteristics that distinguish genuine catastrophic cracks from artificial creations include the natural fracture profile of hardened steel, the presence of die flow lines that terminate at the crack edge, the consistency of metal displacement along the crack path, the absence of post-strike heating or tooling evidence, and the overall appearance of a coin that has been through the catastrophic failure of a production die rather than subjected to aftermarket manipulation. The final consideration for collectors examining 2001 Roosevelt dimes is the importance of understanding that while the catastrophic die crack variety is extraordinarily rare, other 2001 errors including minor die cracks, partial collar strikes, and clipped planchets do exist and can command significant premiums when authenticated, making systematic examination of this historically significant date worthwhile for all serious collectors. The legacy of the Roosevelt dime series, spanning from the post-war era through the turn of the millennium and into the modern age, finds perhaps its most emotionally resonant chapter in the 2001 catastrophic die crack, a coin that connects the personal memories of a generation to the raw power of the minting process, that reminds us that even in our most technologically advanced facilities, the fundamental forces of metal and pressure can produce rarities that rival the greatest treasures of American numismatics. If you value accurate, well-researched coin information, subscribing to NEXA VAULT ensures you won't miss future discoveries we uncover. The 2001 Roosevelt dime stands as proof that extraordinary value can exist in the most familiar objects, that the coins we handle during the most significant moments of our lives can become treasures beyond imagination, and that the disciplined, knowledgeable, patient approach to numismatics remains the most reliable path to discoveries that transform collections, investments, and the very way we understand the history held in our hands. Share this information with fellow collectors who appreciate substantive content, and subscribe to NEXA VAULT for continued quality research. Welcome your discoveries and experiences in the comments, examine your personal collections carefully, and remember that the next coin you pick up might be the one that changes everything.